Hey folks, thanks for stopping by. A few months back I published a video on a Ward's Airline radio model 62361 from late 1938, early 1939. Again, the radio is an Airline. It was the brand name used for Montgomery Ward radio line. Here's a quick look at the chassis. As you can see, the chassis is in bad shape with a lot of rust and crud. It just seems to be my luck as of late. I've had to do a lot of derusting. So anyway, a little hard work will get this thing cleaned up. Here's a quick look at the underneath side of the chassis, the electronic side. It looks pretty good. You can see maybe where a few capacitors had been replaced at some point in time. Otherwise, everything seems to be from the period. You can see the speaker will require some derusting as well on the back side along the field coil. The front side looks good. The speaker cone has no holes or rips. Here's a quick look at the fascia or front side of the radio, including the dial plate, and another close-up shot. So disassembly of the variable tuning capacitor started, and here are just a few photos of that taking place. The radio is very unique that it uses a 3/8 inch ribbon that you can see here, red and white, that's attached to the dial cord to track the the radio location or frequencies on the dial. Very unique. It's also missing the shaft and the two pulleys that I'll have to create. That shouldn't be a problem though. Again, another detailed look here is the disassembly of the tuning capacitor starts, along with all the associated gears here. I think I spent equal time on the tuning capacitor on this radio as I did the electronic restoration. This thing was in really bad shape, as you can see from the photos, with just tremendous amount of crud and rust. So this one, again, took a little bit more time than than was anticipated initially. A few more photos here, just documenting the disassembly of all the components. For anyone out there doing this, I'm sure most folks do this, but take plenty of photos. Lots of parts and pieces to put back together. They're also laid out in order, and I just ran a piece of wire through that and attached it so I could get the order back in place. And actually I think one was out of place as it was assembled probably from the factory. Here are some of the parts and pieces just being soaked overnight to remove the rust. A couple more up-close photos here. Again, the plastic around the grommet for the dial light is busted and will require a new piece installed as well. Quick look at the chassis. You can see the work that lies ahead here with the rust and pitting on the chassis, which we'll take care of with some naval jelly, removing the IF can covers as well as the power transformer from the chassis. Here's a couple photos of the naval jelly being applied to the chassis. Again, there was a lot of rust on the front, the top, and both sides and the back were pretty well clear. So I didn't end up having to apply any naval jelly on those locations. Here's a couple photos here with most of the rust removed at this point in time. So again, it cleaned up pretty well. I mentioned earlier that I pulled the power transformer out and cleaned it up with naval jelly, and also checked all the windings and voltages and documented those. Everything was fine. After completing the work on the transformer, I moved on to the chassis itself, and you can see again the rust was removed, and here the chassis was painted on the top, the sides, front, and back. Here's a quick look of the chassis after painting before installing the transformer. Another quick look, and you can see it much better. The transformer is reinstalled on this particular photo, and again one more angle with the power transformer install. One of the grid wires leaving the IF can was frayed, so I took the opportunity to replace it when I had everything apart, as you can see in the photo. With the majority of the chassis work behind me, I moved on to the electrical restoration. You can see in the photos here all the paper and wax capacitors and electrolytics were replaced. In addition, I ended up replacing, I think it was 2 or 3 dog bone resistors that were out of tolerance. So pretty straightforward. Again, I didn't run into any issues whatsoever completing the restoration on the electrical side. Here's a quick look at the radio playing. You can see the green eye is working as designed, and again the speaker still needs to be cleaned up. Here's a quick look at the pulleys that I mentioned. I actually crafted these out of 1/2 inch dowel and used 1/8 inch brass rods with a washer and some epoxy. So hopefully they'll serve me well when I reattach the ribbon.
It's just one of the reasons more than 25 million homeowners have used home advice.
I'm getting their head around. It's the fact that this year, we're going to have.
They knew he was coming. So he comes. Pastoreando las ovejas, perdido, hallado. Pardon me, boy. Is that the champion?
Airplay. And I think that's why you see guys like Toby Keith continue to.
It's possible that
Thanks for stopping by, checking out this restoration on this Ward's Airline 62361 from 1939. Restoration will continue. I've got a few more things left to do to the electrical side, and then we'll move on to the cabinet.